Okay, earlier today, Seto beat Tezuka in the first game of SE Ultimecia. Now we're going to get Seto versus Delial in just a series of random trade games they're going to play. And, they gave me heads up, so I get to watch and commentate. Unlike the last thing I watched, I'm going to try not to ever turn on the solver. I think we'll try to actually analyze and stay connected to the game and not go, well, I can be lazy, let's go check. So, I did say during the Seto Tezuka match, I think Seto is at his most vulnerable, which is still not very vulnerable, when he goes in five. Now here, this follows the smokes rule of when you can go in five. Do you have three plus walls? And at least two, but three is ideal. And here, Seto has so many ways to play through five, right? 8-7 A4 is in four. 8-5 A5 is your card that actually plays off at the least, and it still has potential sames in six. 8-5 8-7 has a plus wall in eight, and A3-6-8 has a same wall in two and a plus wall in six. So he can combo this card from all four directions, and yeah, it seems to work quite cleanly. I would note, however, he has a right weakness. So if we're Delhi, and we're going to be looking from Delhi's perspective because, he will be the one taking more time per move, among other things. Therefore, he will be the one that we're going to have more time to think about his moves. I would be thinking about going on the right side of the board. I would also be thinking it is better to make it a side to side game than an up down game, right? Very clearly, we look at Zeto's hand and we think that's an up down hand. So my candidate squares to play in would be 4, 6, 3, or 9. And I would be really hesitant to go anywhere else. I also noticed Beatrix might land really nicely in 2, so we could try to play for that. So the move that comes to mind there is 9, 5, 4, 9, and 3, but Seto has a capture from 2, and we can, I think, put up more of a challenge than that. 9, 5, 4, 9, and 9 seems to have some potential. I don't like that we don't control 8, 7, A4's 8 facing up. It would be really nice if we could control that. Our only double numbers to control A's are facing up left, which is probably not where we face the action. Alright, so I think my main candidate move is this crazy? 5, 9, 8, 6, and 6. We have pretty good recaptures, and it makes the game side to side. Now, it does give their 8-5 A5 so much play, they could probably leave the squares open. Okay, that's probably not the card. It's probably not the card. Really honed in on 3, 6, or 9. Really like to play in one of those squares. Maybe even something like Beatrix in 6, with just Sephiroth for 3 or 9. No, but Beatrix is your best recapture. I'm not finding quite the right way to do it, but I think there's a good way somewhere over here. All right, thinking a little differently. If you play something like Sephiroth in 7, there's Sephiroth in 7. Okay, got to a little different. Now you actually control anything Seto can put in 4 that takes. Seto has already picked up a card. As I said, we will be looking from Deli's perspective because we will have time to think for Deli and we won't for Seto. But even though, I mean, Deli does have 8, right? But even if he didn't have 8, Seto doesn't have 4 without getting comboed into Oblivion. And so Deli can build out from here, potentially, by going in 4 himself. Now, he doesn't have an amazing card to put in 4. Also, totally missed this. 9549 has both 6 and 8. That's a lot of combo potential. Okay. I think this is a good move, right? He has 6 and 8 with the same card. He also has 4 and 8 with the same card. He also has 2 and 4 with the same card, A368. Though that's shared by Seto, who did pick up A368. I wonder if he wanted to go in 2 with it and just make it an up-down game. But Deli is also threatening to go safely in 8. Probably not with 5986 because he needs that to control 4, but with 296A, yeah, this should be pretty promising for Deli. And I think that Seto is picking up and putting down cards. He's still going to play in a very short period of time. He's taken just over 2 minutes here. But for him, that is a serious thing, right? A serious thing. All right, let's see if anything's happening on the Discord. It seems to me like Deli's cards are just better aligned here, right? Beatrix is so good in either 2 or 8. 9549 is good in 4 or 8. 9549, incidentally, a card that was really, really important to Deli's victory in TTAC's quarterfinals, semifinals against Tezuka. So, all right, 8, 5, 8, 7, and 2. I was right about the square 2. He is trying to make it an up-down game. This makes sense, right? One thing that 4 and 6 do is they enforce that it will be a side-to-side game. Going 7 can set more up, but also gives the opponent the ability to direct something. Man, A368 is gonna land so well on that right side at some point for someone. So candidate moves. I think Beatrix in 8 is interesting. Yeah, I can definitely see Beatrix in 8 working. Other squares. You can go in 4 with the idea to combo back in 8, but I think that's vulnerable for a couple reasons. One is potentially if Seto in some lines will land 6 and will be able to combo back. But even if he doesn't, your whole goal, you end up winning some cards on the right? Because like you go 4, I might have said 6, but you go 4, they go 1, you go 8, you flip 5, which combos back 4 if needed. He won't flip 4. So you'll have 4, 5, 7, and 8. But your cards, and so you have an extra card locked in on the left row, but your cards in 5 and 8 are so vulnerable, you almost never win those positions, right? And it's really easy to imagine something like Seto plays in 3, and then 8, 5, A5 just sweeps the endgame, just can take anything. So I think moves like that are not as promising as they might appear, even if they're pretty plausible and closed. You can also go 1, but I think 8, 7, 8, 4 sweeps you. Don't see much point to 1. So I would kind of say no to 1 and 4, and that leaves me with 3 and 8 as my main squares. 9 is always a creative option, but I don't really know why we'd go 9 here. And 6 is an Akiyama square, so we'll ignore that. So I think it's between 3 and 8. I haven't really looked at 3, but it just seems like the other square that makes some sense. But I'm not sure what we'd actually want to put there. So my instinct is Beatrix 8 here. Are you gonna get... Oh, there's a weird line. Okay, so Beatrix 8. And I'm not saying this is the main reply, but it's really interesting. Beatrix 8, 8, 5, A 5, 4. And you're like, that's a stupid move. I can combo it multiple ways. But whether you combo it with 5986 or 9549, you'll probably pick 5986, you flip everything on the board. And then Seto plays in 9 with his remaining card, 8784. And A368 has the combo in both 3 and 6, and that combo will flip many cards. And so you lose. So if you go Beatrix and 8, 8-5, A5, and 4 is very dangerous. But maybe not the end of the world. Maybe you can go 9 there. But that's an interesting response. That's a nice complicated response. Just understanding the combo chain really well. And Seto has put out a lot of these 5s. There's a very interesting combo chain there. Yeah. So that's a reason maybe not to go 8. Maybe you still can. You don't need to keep 5-9-8-6 in your hand anymore necessarily. As long as 3 is covered or gone, then your 9-5-4-9 is now good enough to land in 1. Right? It now covers the 8s facing up. So is there any point to like 5-9-8-6 in 3? I'm not sure. I think if I was playing this, I'd still be just trying to make 8 work. Because I think if they don't go 4, it's probably pretty promising. Maybe no better than a tie ever, though. Huh. Seto's too hard to beat. Hmm. Could go 5-9-8-6 and 8 instead, but I think that's just a better card to hold on to. Like 5-9-8-6 has combos in 1 and 4. 8-3-6-8 has combos in 3 and 6. 9-5-4-9 has combos in 4 and 8. So maybe I'm just not thinking like combo oriented enough, right? Maybe I need to be, but the thing is, Seto has last turn, and 8-7-8-4 has 1 and 4, and 8-3-6-8 has 3 and 6. And that balances out a lot of things. I remember one of the first games, this was actually before the return, but when I was starting to make videos, um, where I played a game with Deli where I like was moving around, and not Photoshop, but essentially Photoshop, moving around images of cards, and we played a game, and I sort of played it sort of similarly. I was playing the equivalent of Deli's position here, and Deli was playing the equivalent of Seto's position here, and I basically played a safe card in 8, and then Deli went, now which way to beat you? And it turned out he was winning, and he was winning multiple ways. But I was like, but everything I did was right. I just played safe cards. How could it not be good? But he had sufficient sweepers at the end. And you could imagine sweepers being pretty scary here. I don't think it should ever be more than a tie, but it's not impossible. Those sweepers are going to be really impressive. But I think Deli having such a good plus in 4 is really useful. He does pick up Beatrix, so I think Beatrix 8 will be played. And I agree with this move. But I do think 8-5-A5 and 4 is a fascinating rejoinder. And we can see it more clearly now. 8-5-A5 and 4, you combo in 1 with 5-9-8-6, and then 8-7-A4 lands at 9, and it's game over. You wish you could take 8-5-A5 without comboing 2 as well, because that's what flips 5, and that's what ends the game. So I was assuming that was the main response, but he picks up something else. And you can also go in 3, was the other square I was considering. We'll see if Seto plays it all like I was thinking. But I thought 3 was the other response if you don't want to do fun stuff in 4. But my instinct is 4 here. It's just such a neat move, right? It's one of those moves like it doesn't usually it's not usually quite this pretty because this happens to rely on the forced combo through 2. But especially against new players in combo closed, you win a whole bunch of games this way because they just take too much and they leave too many combo chains. So like if you have a 3-6-8 here and you're playing a new player, and let's say they have flipped 2 and 5, you go for they take from 1, and then you go 9, and a 3-6-8 just combos everything and you just win. And I think new players, because they tend to be over capturing and also aren't careful about kind of leaving out different numbers so that the same card won't have every combo square against them, um, tend to fall into a lot. And here it works in a neater way, but it looks like it still works. Doesn't look like Seto's going for it though. Yeah, I don't think he can be going 9. That's just weak to 6. No need to walk into that. No, I think this is probably headed for 3. Unless this move is better than the move I was thinking, I'm surprised Seto's not going in for it, just because it feels like such a. I've called certain players kind of combo sensitive, of just like they just always have a feel for when the combos go their way, and Seto has kind of done that with his moves in 5 and 2, and 4 seems to me the natural culmination of that. But 3 is probably okay. Probably. I'm not sure. 3 might lose to 6. I feel like 3 loses to 6. So I think he must not be thinking 3. Where else could you put a 3-6-8 though? Could you put it in 6? Might be able to put it in 6. That's a weird move. But it might not. It might not lose. Right. Looks like Delhi has sent a message saying that might have been stupid. I don't think it was. I think as much as Seto has some nice options here, they shouldn't win. Though I haven't actually like checked that 4 can be met by 9. I've been assuming 4 is met by 9. I guess it depends which card goes in 4. Note that 8-7-A4 and 4 doesn't work as well because the combo back doesn't chain through. It's not weak to 5. And A3-6-8 and 4, the combo doesn't extend through 7, which is really important. And also, Delhi isn't forced to flip things. So 8-5-A5 in 4. I think A3-6-8 in 9. Ooh, and 9-5-4-9 now has 6. Okay, so this might actually work great for Delhi. So yeah, Seto might have needed to go 6, which is interesting. Can Delhi do anything fun here? What happens if A3-6-8 and 4? A3-6-8-4. If Seto plays Beardo in 1, you plus too much. Okay, that does refute that idea. Okay, not a good idea. I should mute my phone, I think. Interesting find in 6. Maybe the move in 4 didn't work. Just looked cool. How do I mute my phone again? Focus mode. There we go. All right. So if you go 6, a tricky thing is that it does combo through. unless you play there with 5986. Looks like ties. Or at least I'm not seeing. And some ways to lose, of course, but I'm seeing ties. And if there's no wins, and I think there's no wins, I'd probably look at 5986 and 9 first, because I think that's the most like secure this ties move, right? If either card in 3, then 9, 5, 4, 9, and 4 is a tie, right? There's no combo back, so it's just you're up 6-4 and they flip one thing back. If they go in 6 with 8, 5, 8, 5, then you combo with 9, 5, 4, 9, and 1. Sorry, if they go in 4 with 8, 5, 8, 5, you combo in 1 with 9, 5, 4, 9. If they go in 4 with 8, 7, 8, 4, then you combo in 3 with 8, 3, 6, 8. Or no, still with 9, 5, 4, 9. Yeah, you want to flip the extra card. And if they go in 1, you just go in 4 and you win. So 5, 9, 8, 6, and 9 is the most comfortable tie. I don't think there's a win. My guess now is that probably 8, 5, 8, 5, and 4 didn't work, and Seto turned it down because it didn't work. It was a cool move, though. I said I wouldn't solve her, but I'm lazy and we've moved past the position, so yeah. Let's bring it up this one time because I think that was a neat situation. Alright, so Seto had 6, 5, A7, 8, 5, 8, 7, 8, 3, 6, 8, 8, 5, 8, 5, 8, 7, 8, 4, and Deli 8, 8, 3, 8, 2, 9, 6, A, 8, 3, 6, 8, 5, 9, 8, 6. Deli's checking everything now. I don't think there's a win, which is why I'm bringing up the solver, because if I thought there was a win, I would like to find it, you know? Nice first game. Really complicated. Alright, 5, 7. Looks like very dangerous, dangerous position for Seto. Apparently, of all 28 moves here, he has 4 ties. One of them was with A368, so it's not it's possible he was, going to find a save there. Yeah, 8, 5, 8, 7 ties, and after 2, 9, 6A, he has a bunch of ties here. Was 8, 5, 8, 5, and 4 one of them? Yeah, it was. That was a cool one. But A3, 6, 8, and 6, also a tie. I don't particularly think... I put in the cards wrong. Alright. So that may have all been made up nonsense, because it turns out A368 is a different card than A369. And that does make a difference in some lines, because that card has combo potential. So, let's check again. Was there ties on move 3? Or was this a tie on move 3? Still a tie on move 3. Still looks like there were... Alright, now it's giving 6 ties. So a little more, but still very dangerous. And, yeah, a couple ways to tie here. My move in 4 was not one of them. I am la dumb. Yeah, 9 wins. Okay. Good job not going for this. Yeah, alright. Yeah, you just can't keep cards that are good on both sides. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So I shouldn't have spent so much time on that. I just thought it was a cool looking move. And, oh, this is a loss. What did I miss? Something else than 9? So one of A368 or 9, it has to be A368, and it has to be 9. A3689? Oh, he just clocked. Alright, tell me. What's the move? It is A3689. Yeah, we'll flip over. Alright, I was completely wrong in this game. Terrible analysis from me. But in this position, In this position, there's 4 ties. Weirdly, this is the move I kept harping on just because I thought this line was so cool, right? Or not that, sorry, this. This line was so cool, right? Um, something like that. But weirdly, this ties. I guess same idea. But like the idea is so much worse because you just don't flip near as much, but I guess it's enough. Right? I guess it's enough. Yeah. Alright. I wrote that one off, but anyways, but Delhi can play here. And now this loses to this. Ah, because it flips through. I was trying to go a 9 in a way that wasn't vulnerable to 8 because I just wasn't counting the combos properly. But yeah, 9 just wins here. I'm gonna pop open the Discord, but really nice job by Delhi. Reaches this position. Seto doesn't find a tie, but tricky to find the win here. I just counted this wrong. This is, again, I've been saying this in so many videos, but like, and it's, you know, it's not the end of the world that I'm blundering this when I'm not calculating everything. But if you're a player here, and I think this is what Delhi did, it's why he took 7 minutes, you just have to check every line, right? And you have to do it methodically. Because if you start like, okay, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, all right, maybe we'll start with this. Okay, maybe I want to go here, maybe I want to, you know, and you just start hopping between moves, you end up recalculating stuff and not doing it near as efficiently as if you're just like, okay, I think this is the most promising card here. However, after this, only ties. Okay, that doesn't work. Next most promising card, say this. All right, let's check that. Okay, do I have something here? Well, I can take the plus, only ties. All right, don't see anything there. Okay, this one. They combo. Oh no, they combo extra. Oh no, comboing extra is actually good for me. Now I win. So I think that's tricky line. Nice job by Delhi to get a winning position. Oh. Apparently, he wanted to play. Oh, the timer said he had 12 seconds. Delhi. Yeah. This is the fear of letting the timer run low. So apparently Seto misclicked that move in 6, which is interesting. So he wanted to play 3. Seto misclicks too much. Now 3 just loses. And I think 3 would have lost more quickly. Alright, I'm not going to look at why it loses. Let's figure it out, and then we'll hop over to the game. Okay. Instinct is maybe... No, that doesn't do it. It's 5-5. So what I should be doing, what if we would be doing if we were doing this properly, is just going through everything. This is tricky. Can you perform a similar thing? Does this work? Because if they combo, we now win. No, we don't. We lose. Sorry, that combo too much. Okay. Terrible first idea. Maybe we can start like this. Said it was winning, but I am really struggling to see it. Alright, show me. There? Did I just not count properly? Oh, I completely missed there's a plus wall in 6. Okay, let's switch over to the next game. Huh. So Deli actually was playing A3, 6, 8, and 9. So nicely done by him, sort of. Bad on the clock. Yeah. All right, that was a tricky one to calculate. I completely missed the plus walls in 6 there. Okay, so we got a weak corner starter from Seto, or Doggo as he is known. Makes sense. He had 3 corners for 1. Now he has 2 corners for 1. All right, last game. I would like to apologize because all of my analysis was incorrect. But that's okay. We'll just try to do better on this one. It doesn't seem like combos are going to line up for either player here very well. I feel like cards aren't going to click too strongly in this one. On the other hand, the first line I was considering, 6-2, A9, and 3, if that's captured by 5A, 7-6, and 2, my point was 4-6, A8, and 6 is a recapture, right? And if they don't capture, we can lock in by blocking 2. They have a plus in 5 there. Probably doesn't make much difference, but they do have a plus in 5. So I kind of like the look of 6-2, A9, and 3. Like, you don't need 2 if they can never take from 6. On the other hand, you want to lock in by going into yourself, and whenever you do go into, it seems like Seto gets Cypher in 1. So maybe it doesn't have much promise. It is an idea, though. And I was claiming all this morning I like adjacent corners against weak corner starters. And I stand by it. I think those are an effective way to play. I'm not seeing too much else that has much appeal to me. I was kind of thinking, like, if you play like 4-6, A8, and 1, Seto's only captures, or even 9-5, 9-5, but 4-6, A8, he has 2 captures, and one of them you have a great response to. Maybe you have a good response to both, though, actually. 4-6, A8, 1, if they take with Rico and 2, you then play Beardo and 3. And you do take 2 and 3, right? Those are yours. You have to give up 1 to get it, but seems like decent compensation. So that's an idea. They might have good setups, though, right? If you play something like 4-6, A8, and 1, maybe 9-5, 8-7, and 5. Probably not, though, because they're still really reliant on 8-7, 4-9, and 2, and you still have that covered. So I think probably not that. So I kind of like the look of the sacrificial 4-6, A8, and 1. For some reason, my brain today is only like strong corners. Like, I'm only thinking about moves like 9-2, A6, and 6, or 6-2, A9, and 3, or 4-6, A8, and 1. And after watching Seto's win against Tezuka, you'd think maybe my thick skull could have realized weak corners can be effective as well, but I don't. It's not clicking. Yeah, so I think I'd play one of the big corners. I think I'd play one of the big corners. What I'm aspiring towards this game is to calculate the endgame correctly. Because I did not manage that last time, right? I really wanted 8-5, A5, and 4. That was losing the whole way. I didn't refute the move in 6, and specifically only brought up the solver because I didn't think there was a win. And there was a win. I'm not combo sensitive, as it were. I don't have that just like feeling for the long chains. There are obvious versions I get, like that line in 4 I was enjoying was like the kind of version I get where you just have every combo square. But the ones where like the chains keep going and flip that card that they sometimes flip and sometimes don't, you don't realize that extra card, I don't have a good feel for that. I think that's one of my weaknesses as a player. Don't time out again, Deli. You can do this. You can make a move. He picked up a card. And he played it. Progress, right? Okay. So a lot of his cards in the top row, and like all the moves I looked at, right? He sort of did a move that relates to everything I looked at, but took it that step further, right? I was trying to get 1 and 3 to work, but the problem is they're all vulnerable to stuff in 2. So what do? You remove the card from 2, right? I considered 6-2 A9 and 3. I considered 4-6 A8 and 1. I considered 9-5 9-5 and 1, but that gave them more ways to attack it, so I moved on to 4-6 A8. Right? It was all looking at things that were sort of safe facing down, but had potential problems to 2. And so Deli is removing a card from the square from the game that tends to be bad for him, and now he has real threats to go in, ideally 3. Now, did he give up squares to Seto? Unclear, right? He does have 3 controlled. Anything in 3, he has options to capture. Because 4-6 A8 controls A's down. What about 1? Cipher 1, if Deli takes safety in 3, that's kind of similar to the line where I was sacking 1, forcing Rico to take from 2, 9-5, 8-7, and then taking from 3. Except in this line, the 2 only has a 6 facing down. One thing to note is Deli might want to leave 3 open because if it's flipped, maybe Yuffie has the same wall somewhere. Two being vulnerable could be worrying. Or could make it a little worse. But I'm not sure it does. 1 seems like the obvious square. You can also, of course, go like 5 or 7. I don't think you have too much combo play against Deli's captures, right? There's also the options of like 6 and 8 are usually the first squares I look at, because like if I played a starter, that's tough for the opponent to take. And like here we can see, like what are Deli's captures in 6, right? Well, 6-2 A9 is covered by Cipher in 3. 9-5 9-5 is covered by Cipher in 3. 8A7-2 is covered by 5A7-6 and 3. And so 4-6 A8 is the only card not kind of trivially covered. And that's always interesting. And you notice if 4-6 A8 does land in 6 and Seto plays 3, Deli's only recapture is 5 with Yuffie. And then he's left with cards that have no right power at all. So I don't think it would be that weird to go like Rico in 8 here, right? And just say you don't have comfortable play. You don't have comfortable play in 6. In fact, no, there's not a sneaky way to do it. But Rico in 8 seems like an interesting idea to me. Not sure it's good, but just brainstorming here. Cipher 1 is the chalk move, but that doesn't mean it has to be played, right? You can force action in 8. I think 8's better than 6 here. I think 8's a good deal better than 6. It's both pushes Deli to the more difficult capture for him, and also, if you go 6, Deli gets 3 for free. Well, if you go 8, you're not giving away a square in the same way. So 8 seems interesting to me. 1 seems reasonable. What else is there? I don't have a good feel for moves in 5 at all. But I think you look at Seto's hand. You don't really want to J here, right? Your hand is not looking to be up down. Delhi has turned the game into an up down game, but you don't want to help him in that, right? You look at Delhi's hand, you're like 9-5-9-5, 6-2-A9. You know, every card in the hand has at least as high a total going up down as side to side, right? Seto's hand, that is obviously not true. Two of the cards are better up down, two of the cards are better side to side, but the two side to side cards are a little more side to side typey in my eyes. Maybe. So anyway, my point is, I don't think if you're Seto, you're aiming for an up-down game, and the J will really exaggerate how up-down it is. So I think you probably don't go 5. Just talking general principles here. We're going to try to calculate the endgame properly this time, but we're also not going to tire ourselves out calculating everything else. They get to do that. We get to watch. Interesting, Seto has taken over 5 minutes here, right? That's a pretty rare occurrence. My guesses are 1 or 8, but also I am not good at guessing Seto games. In general, most Brotherhood of Seed players play quite distinctly from how I do, and I'm not particularly good at guessing their moves. I think I have no idea if this would still be true. Koner in 2009-ish, I was quite good at guessing his moves. He was the first top player whose moves I started being able to guess pretty well when watching, as I was making the jump to being a top player myself. So at least then, I would say my style was most similar to Koner's. Kana. I get yelled at every time. Okay, so we do see one of the standard moves. Now, the typical rejoinder, I think, is 3, right? I think it's taking the safety in 3. While we're here, though, are there other moves of interest? One kind of interesting feature of the position is any card Seto puts in 3, other than 5A7-6, is comboed. So if Delhi could control that 7, which I don't think he can, yeah, I don't think he can, but if he could, that would open up some interesting paths, right? Like if he could play in like 5 but control 3, that could be funky. I don't think that's the case here though. Another neat thing you can try to do sometimes is like Yuffie and 6. Look at Yuffie and 6, right? Beard is so good. Seto cannot play in 3 there, right? Because Beard in 5 is going to murder him. Any move in 3 flips 2. I think Beard in 5 must be just winning there. Possible I'm wrong, but and Yuffie and 6 were giving up a lot of power to do so. But Yuffie and 6 is a really interesting move because Beard is so good in those remaining squares. So Yuffie in 6, Beard in 3, 4-6-A8 in 3. I think those are the candidate moves. Where else could you seriously look? The solver likes moves in 7 in these structures more than I'm ever going to find them. I don't really have the heuristic instinct. I think when you're trying to add a move or add an understanding, you sort of need to give yourself some cues to start looking for it, and then you can start seeing it and calculating it. But I don't really have the cues in my head. I don't have the kind of here's what to look for. And so I'm skeptical of 7. I'm really liking the look of 6 now. But last game, there was a move I really liked in 4, and it was terrible. But doesn't Yuffie in 6 just look beautiful? Just a beautiful looking move. You don't have last turn, which is pretty important. I can admit this. One nice feature about it is... Nah, it's probably just not good. I think Seto just goes in 4-8. Yeah, I don't think it's good. I think as long as Seto holds on to like 5A7-6, yeah, he combos back well enough. All right, not bad idea. In that case, I'm back to 3 as the main line here. And I think you probably, at this point, want to use Beardo. I think 4-6-A8, having a threat in 8, for instance. Um, the plus in 6 that you set up is not worth much, but I think that's worth it. I think that would be the card to keep on. Hold on. I think right power is the thing more fleeting in your hand that you want to make sure you maintain. So I'm going to guess Beard in 3. I'm going to take a sec to respond to messages. I am closing Discord between stuff, but then reopening it and seeing what I've been sent. Because sometimes it's game relevant, and other times I've just run out of stuff to say. I wish I liked 6. I do like 6. I wish I thought 6 was as good as I like it. You know? Because 6 is a very normal move in these structures, but almost always when that card in 2 is not yours. Right? You are setting up combo potential, but on cards that aren't flipped. Alright, what's happening? That's a good idea. I should put rule sets in the descriptions to my videos. But yeah, worth noting that rule sets are relevant. So this game I'm not going to mention rules particularly because it's the standard rules, but especially mentioning them when it's irregular, definitely worth doing. And also, like, I could put the stipulations in the description. I think that would be nice for tournament rule sets. Yeah, this is a good idea, and I will try to do so henceforth, though I probably won't go check the videos that I've scheduled or put up. Okay. Beardo does land in 3, and Seto has already picked up his next card because he calculates everything. I do think, what was I going to say? It's gone. Oh, I like when I'm watching games that aren't tournament games, so I don't feel like I have to write down the moves. I know people post them now, but I always feel like I'm going to lose it if I don't write it down. And it's nice to not have to go and type stuff up. What did Seto pick up? I can't remember. I have a very good memory for some things. And I just like can't remember the last card when it's been picked up. Like I was just calculating stuff with it. I think we should be able to figure it out. It was 9587. Okay, I did get there. He's picked up 9587. Which could be going in many squares, right? 4, 5, 6, probably not 8. Probably not 7. If it goes in 5, that's the most combative square. There's nothing immediate. Is there a setup? I don't think so. Do you get swept endgame? 8A7-2 is going to be a tricky card for Seto to deal. Okay, he goes 6, not 5. 8a7-2, the really critical card here, I believe. So clearly the critical move is 8a7-2 and 5, going up 6-4. If Seto takes in 8, then Deli can play safely in 4, recapturing, and he wins. If Deli doesn't, if Seto doesn't take an 8, Deli can play safely in 4 and he wins. If Seto takes in 4 with 8-7-4A, then Deli can not combo with 4-6-A8 because it gets comboed back. So that's the tie, I think. Let's just check other moves. Actually, either card in 4, I think, ties. Okay, so there's multiple ties there. What if Deli goes 8? 8's not very appealing. I don't think 8's going to be the answer. Yuffie and 8, you go up 6-4. They just go 5. Yeah, that's nothing. Can you do anything fun in 7? I do not think so. 4 seems unlikely. Yeah, I think you go Yuffie 5 and you call it a day. And you don't get scared of a 5A, 7, 6, and 7, even though it sets up a goofy plus in 4, because you can block 4 and you're fine. Yeah. I should make sure 5 ties to 4. As I said, we should be calculating this correctly. So Yuffie 5 will do every move, as you should do it in a tournament. Like, the move in 6 has been made. We've been talking, we've been thinking, but here's what I think should be done in a tournament game. They go 6. Okay, my natural move is Yuffie 5. Yuffie 5. If they go, let's pick a square between 4 and 8. I might have been saying 6, I meant 4. But let's pick 8. Okay. 8, 7, 4, 9, and 8. When I capture in 5, I go up 6-4. They make it 5-5. I can recapture safely in 4. I win. If they go 5A, 7, 6, and 8. They do not capture. I'm still up 6-4. I can go in 4 safely with that A down, or the 9 down, but the A is easier to check. I win. Don't need to check the extra card, okay, those are wins. What if they go in 4? Okay, 8, 7, 4, 9, in 4. They make it 5-5. I have a capture in 8, but they capture back, so that's a tie. I also have captures in 7. My better capture is 4-6-A8, but that gives them a plus in 8 because there's the 7 down facing their 5. Therefore, I should just take the capture in 8, and that does tie. Okay, that's a tie. Not a win, but a tie. What if they go in 4 with 5A, 7, 6? They make it 5-5. If we take back in 8 with 9-5, 9-5, they capture us and we tie. If we take 9 with 4-6-A8, they have a combo in 7 and we lose. Okay, we do tie there. We have a tie, but we have to be careful there as well, and we do not win. Okay, lastly, 8, 7, 4, 9, and 7. Looks terrible, but gotta check it. It does not set up anything in 8, so we'd go in 4, they'd have the last move in 8. And then we do the last move, and we can do that, and hopefully we can do that in, a minute or two, and then we can move on to trying other moves. But we would finish the analysis to make sure we've checked every move there, right? And it's going to be slower when I talk it out, but okay. Deli goes a completely different route. He goes 4, which I ruled out. I think his point is that 8, 7, 4, 9 landing in 5 is comboed in 8, and 5A, 7, 6 landing in 5 is also comboed in 8. Interesting move. I would think. Oh, and he also sets up a plus in 5. Totally missed this. All right, so I said we'd calculate this correctly, but I did not. Yeah, Deli finds the win. All right, so, I showed how I would check the main move, but I did not get to the others. But in a tournament, we really should get to the others, right? This was not my instinct at all. I didn't see the idea behind it, but I should have gotten to the move, at least in a tournament setting, by just brute forcing it, right? This should be whether or not my instincts and understandings are good enough. There's 4 moves left, should be brute forced. We didn't do that here, and Delhi did. Congrats to Delhi, who is now technically lost the first game, but basically just beat Seto 2 open randoms in a row. That is incredible. Because Seto's not beatable. I don't know if you've heard. Well done. Star move in 2. And he was winning even if Seto hadn't misclicked. In fact, I think he was winning more easily if Seto hadn't misclicked the previous one. So, remarkable showing from Delhi. If we were making, like, I obviously do power rankings rewarding the people who play events, but if we were doing a power rankings of just, like, who are probably the best players, right, then, like, they'd be a lot more repetitive, right? Because, same names at the top is going to be a regular occurrence, right? Really nice move in 4 as well. I did miss that. Yeah, great game by Delhi. But with Seto making this run to the Ultimecia finals, with him winning a chat tournament, beating, among others, me, and stuff. Yeah. Seto did lose 1 game to Vid, but he's certainly favorite to win Ultimecia, right? He's up 1-0, he beat Tezuka, he has Midas left. If he loses to Midas, he still has a chance to win the tournament. Because if Tezuka beats Midas, the bracket is reset, right? So, and he, obviously he's in the lead. So, like, Seto has been winning absolutely everything. And if we were doing kind of a pure who seems like the best player right now, Delhi wins TTAC, Delhi takes the lead for a bit, but now seems like Seto is taking the lead. And Seto has been playing a lot more than he has played in the past. So, if you're betting on any single player at the moment, Seto seems the best pick. And for Delhi to have basically won 2 games in a row is honestly fantastic. Yeah. Battle of the Titans, Deltobowl. All right, we're on to game 3. I was going to try to take a walk at some point today, but that seems to have been put on hold. Now, it may be that Seto has had bad hands. There's lots of reasons for this, but these look like just complicated games that I have not been getting right, and they have been getting right, which is, again, very much to say these are really great players. When I'm doing commentary, I like to feel like I'm seeing everything, right? And obviously I'm not, but I like to feel like I am. And often I can get by on sort of heuristics, right? I can get by on here's my feel for the position. Here's what I feel should be happening. And when doing commentary, it's very difficult to calculate quickly and well, right? It's hard to be talking aloud and doing that kind of thought. So I try to run on heuristics, and I think that's really good practice. Like, I think that has been good for my play. Because when I play the tournament games, maybe I don't calculate as well as I used to, but I do think, like, clearly I've calculated pretty well in tournament games. But it also just gives me a lot of practice for being able to cover up not calculating as much with trying to understand positions. And in lots of games between lots of pairings of opponents, my heuristics lead me to really good moves, and I can offer good logical paths. But I think something about how both of these players play, but let's stay focused on Seto for the moment, but especially Seto, is he plays in such a way that my understandings of the game don't apply as well. And Delhi does this too, but not to the same extent. And so I think especially when watching Seto games, I'm going to miss a lot, right? And it would take me a while, most of my time, of pure calculation to kind of try to get there. And that's a huge strength for him, right? he plays in a way that means my normal rules of play don't work. And like the whole way that top players beat each other is right, you get some pressure and eventually someone folds. But how do you get pressure? You get pressure because something in the opening position did not click for them, right? And there are certain positions that are just always going to click for a player. There are certain positions that are virtually never going to click for a player. But there are a lot of positions that might go either way. And sometimes randoms force you into this will never click category. But usually with hands, there's like some chance the position clicks for you. Your hand shouldn't be that far behind. And Seto is really good, I think, at leading players into positions that do not click for them and do click for him. Now, one strength of Delhi, I think Delhi plays very combatively. But I think Delhi's strength in this regard is not so much that he leads opposing players. There's this wonderful quote from Mikhail Tal in chess of he was world champion, really fascinating player, played this incredibly aggressive, wild style, and people often go like, he's amazing, but the computers, now that we have very strong computers, say he played bad. No, the computers actually think he played really well too. He was just this fascinating, sacrificial player, really fun player. Almost everyone who gets into chess at some point has him as their favorite player. He certainly was mine for a bit, a long time ago. I'm much more boring now. But when I aspired to be an interesting player, he was my favorite for a bit. But Mikhail Tal is this quote of, let's get the quote actually right, so I'll Google it. You must take your opponent into a deep dark forest where 2 plus 2 equals 5, and the path leading out is only wide enough for one. What a great quote, right? You must bring your opponent to a place where all the rules are different, where how chess works or how whatever game works is different. And there's such a narrow path for how to navigate it that only one of you is going to make it through. And that's what Mikhail Tal did so well, is he played positions where the rules of the game didn't quite work how they normally do. He found these complications in ways. And I think Seto's really good at that. But actually, one of, I think, Delial's best traits is that so many types of positions are within his comfort zone, right? That the way Triple Triad works for me is somewhat in this kind of narrower set of rules where sometimes calculation and instincts can push you to a broader understandings, right? Can push you to stranger moves, but you're focused on the conventional, right? And I use conventional as a compliment. Like playing conventionally well is to play very well, right? And that's usually good enough. But Seto takes you to the deep dark forest, but I don't know if Delial can be taken to the deep dark forest. Obviously, there are positions he makes mistakes, but I don't think he makes specifically more mistakes in stranger positions. I think his comfort level as the positions get stranger stays similar, right? Most players have, here are the types of positions I'm comfortable in, here are the types of positions I'm not. And for Delhi, I think it's much flatter than for most players, right? It's much harder to direct the game in a type of way that hits his discomfort. You just have to play really, really well against Delhi. Against Seto, you have to be able to come out of that dark forest with him, right? Or as the only one who makes it out. And so this is a really interesting pairing. I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense. It's just what's in my brain at the moment. Sorry if it makes no sense. But I think like how did Seto win today against Tezuka? Tezuka played a weak corner starter, Seto played a weak corner reply, and Tezuka was basically lost. Tezuka tried to make an active move. He wasn't technically lost at all. Seto played a really strong reply, but a really natural like his first move was one I would never play. His second move I would play every time, right? And then Tezuka actually almost found the tie, which was a really hard to find tie, very tricky position. But it went from Seto has made this innocuous, nothing looking move, and suddenly everything is collapsing for you. Actually, maybe this is a very different chess style player, but another chess quote comes to mind. I'm just about chess quotes today, where someone was describing Anatoly Karpov. Anatoly Karpov was world champion. Mikhail Tal was world champion 1960 to 61. Karpov was champion 75 to 85. And someone described Karpov's style as like he gets a nice position, and then he plays a3 and h3, and you resign. And a3 and h3, for those of you who aren't in it with the chess, which is cool, are basically like the most innocuous moves you can make. They're the moves that apply no additional pressure almost always, not inevitably, but clearly in the context of this quote. What they basically do is like spend an entire turn to remove one option you have, right? They are very much I am willing to spend a turn just to remove one little option, especially when you play both of them together. But the idea is he gets this position, he suddenly removes two options of yours, and you are left with nothing. You have been restricted with nothing to do. He didn't have to do anything flashy, he didn't have to do anything surprising, but somehow he outplayed you by so much that by removing two tiny little options, he left you with nothing whatsoever. And maybe, we're jumping around analogies, but like, Seto will play these weak corners, and suddenly your position falls apart. Suddenly it doesn't click. But Delhi is so good at having such a wide range of positions click. And so it's a really fascinating matchup, and it could be described many ways, and I'm sure I've described it very differently in the past. But when watching games like this, is the times I'm just going to be at my absolute least useful. Because they are bringing me into places where I am not comfortable, and they are both willing to go into those positions, right? All right, here we have opposite corners. Delhi has a really comfortable capture in 2 on Seto's corner, and it looks like pretty comfortable in 6 as well. Those 5s facing down are redundant, but are not covered. How is Seto on Delhi's starter? Well, his capture in 8, he only has the 1, and it's really well covered by Marley. 8597 is covered. And his captures in 4, he has more range of them, and they look a little better to me. So I would say Delhi's move in 7 threatens a move in 4. Yeah. Looks to me like it threatens a move in 4, probably with a757, right? Where you have the easy recapture in 1 if needed, and anything with a 7 or an 8 to the right is just a real pain for Seto's hand to take. So I think a5, 7, 5, and 4 is kind of the intended follow-up here. Right, like if Seto made, like, just chucked a random card in 5. Now, if he did chuck in 5, he'd probably be setting up his card in 8, so maybe we couldn't do that, right? Like if he plays like a8, 3, 7, and 5, he is setting up 9, a6, 4 to go in 8. Or if he's playing 8, 5, 7, 9 in 5, he's setting up Tifa to land in 8. So like if he did go 5, this probably wouldn't be the case. But it's worth having in mind what your sort of threat is in a position. And it seems to me that a5, 7, 5, and 4 has a decent chance to be the threat. Obviously not if 9 is removed from the board. If 9 is covered, then 8 is a threat. But yeah. In general, my heuristic for opposite corners is kind of whose corner is tougher to take, and usually whoever's corner is tougher to take for the opponent has the advantage. I think Delhi has more play against 3 than Seto does against 7, so my very quick evaluation here is slight advantage to Delhi. But as I said, these games are very difficult for me. And that should be, I really hope that's understood as a huge compliment to these two players. And again, I think if we were doing a power rankings that wasn't the way I do it, which rewards like results, but kind of just like, stuff that would have the same players at the top, right, every time. And they might be shuffled in order if someone's had a really good month or a good head-to-head against the others, but it'd be the same names. It's not to say they can't be beaten, but it's to say when they are beaten, we still think they're the best players. And when they face each other, sometimes some are better, sometimes others are better, and maybe we shuffle around. But it would be a kind of boring list. Uh, but there's a very good case these would be 1 and 2 right now. And in fact, there's a very good case these would be 1 and 2 for a lot of triple triad history. At the very least, I think most of 2007 and 8, if not all. Might just be the entirety of those 2 years, plus some other moments. But 2 years of the same top two, and with like no case for anyone else, is remarkable. That's a huge run. By the end of 2008, Great Sephiroth maybe? No, I think that's 09. I think Great Sephiroth and a little later in 09, maybe me, start threatening it, but like 07 and 08 are their years. And those were still very active years for the site. That's a lot of people they're competing with. Koner's probably third at that point. Maybe Karmazin, who's still playing open trade games. Meta has a really good year at that point. But there's also just a ton of very good players who are still active. Like Cookie's around, Kamikaze's around. Many very talented players. All right, what should Seto actually do here? Well, he's picked up a card, and I think that card was A837. See, I'm already improving my memory. I was like, I know I calculated a line with it. What was that line? Oh yeah, it could go in 5 and set up 8, so it must have had a 3 down. And we got there, I think. Could be A738. I think it's A837. Goes in 2. Says, you don't have 6. But he does have 6. Does he want 6? Alright, so options to go. 4 remains an option. 4 takes a lot of calculation now. Because 4 pairs the squares 1 and 5. And so if you go 4 and they go 1, 5 is now overpowering things, so you have to be very careful you're not getting hit by combos there. And Tifa controls any card in 5 really well. So I don't think you want to go 4 anymore. There is not safety in 1. One thing I think Akiyama does, let's switch over to talking briefly about Akiyama, is I think Akiyama has a very good feel for where his opponent wants to go and playing against that. I think that's probably his chief strength. And it's the reason he can find strange moves so quickly is because he has such a good feel for what you want to do, or what you should want to do, and he finds ways to restrict that. And so the relevance here is, if Seto goes near his card, or wherever he goes, he's kind of giving up these half-safe squares, right? If he goes in 2, 1 now only needs one direction to be safe. If he goes in 6, 9 only needs that one direction to be safe, etc. If he goes in 5, there's lots of squares that only need one direction to be safe. So he picks the one where Deli has power facing the action, but does not have power facing away from it, so he can't just play in 1. So I don't think Deli has good moves in 1, right? Cecil 4, Cecil. But let's be British today. Cecil. Cecil 4 has such good play against that. I don't really think you want to go 4 because I don't think you want to go 5. And if you go 4, you're pairing squares in such a way that you'll often be forced to go 5. So what's left? Well, there's 5 immediately, but I don't know why you'd want to go 5 immediately. So I think there's 6, 8, and 9. As I said earlier, I have no instinct for 9, so I would be considering the squares 6 and 8. My instinct is Marley is worth holding on to, if we're going to go 6. So if we were going to go 6, I think I want A7, 5, 7. And if we're going to go 8, a square I've complained about in the past, so you might be thinking, but he never goes 8 in these structures. It's rare. You have a lot more freedom of card. And I think that's probably a lot of what Deli will spend his time on here. Because there's 4 minutes left on his turn, and he's going to use most of it. In fact, based on prior evidence, he might use more than all of it, right? And I think separating out the moves in 8 might be a nice use of that time. I'm going to go check the Discord again now that I've just spammed chess quotes at you. Now I just want to talk about chess history. That's probably a bad sign. But we will try to hold off. I think there's okay. You know what? We will talk about 2 chess players. To me, the most interesting time in chess history, and some people will tell you like now because they're following it now and they're excited about it now, and a lot of people will tell you, especially if you're American, Bobby Fischer. But for me, it's like right before Fischer. It's the period, and like I was talking to someone recently who thinks it's the late 30s. People will tell you all kinds of different times. Some people will tell you the 1800s. For me, it's the 1950s and 60s. So young Fischer overlaps, but he's not quite the supernova he would become in the late 60s. I sort of mean early 50s to early 60s. Maybe like 1950 to 1966-ish. And he's very good by the end of that period. He might be the best in the world by 66, but the story isn't really about him. It's about the other players. There were just so many different fascinating Soviet players. And chess had really started to professionalize, so they're playing at a very high level. But they end up having a bunch of different styles, despite the fact that we're starting to develop schools of teaching that, you'd think might regularize players. But what really is happening is they're raising the level of players, and players are still showing lots of different neat strengths. So like Mikhail Tal, who, again, is probably your favorite chess player, at least historical one, just this wonderfully exciting, played the moves like you can't believe he can get away with it, but he's figured it out beautifully, just plays this beautiful chess. Now, a little later in his life, he was sick constantly, and so he won the world championship, but then he was sick for a rematch and lost it back. He played fine. Delhi does go 4. I thought Tifa controlled 5 too well. But we saw sort of this structure last game. Kind of. If Seto goes 1, we saw it last game, and Delhi had the great move in 4, which I did not see coming. So let's assume he has something cooked up. And I'm just going to keep talking about chess for a bit, but we'll enjoy the game. These are some very well-played games. Very complicated, too, which I don't like. Keep it simple for me. Keep it simple for the slow among us. But, yeah, so Tal, later in the 80s, he's also, like, huge chain smoker, huge drinker, huge gambler. He eventually sets the record, which is wild, for, like, the most aggressive risk-taking player, like, in chess history to be world champion. Maybe not in all chess history, but of world champions, he's by far the biggest risk-taker. Not close. Biggest risk-taker, sets the record for most undefeated games in a row at the top level, which is pretty incredible, even though a lot of it was because he made quick draws so he could go gamble and smoke and didn't have to wait between smokes. Which, maybe brings Delhi to mind. But Delhi does not make quick draws to do so. He ended up dying quite young, very sadly, but Mikhail Tal, wonderful player, and the quote about, I take them into the dark forest where 2 + 2 = 5, is just one of those wonderful quotes, kind of that you can apply to any game like this, right? Where it seems like you've figured out how the game works, and then some people manage to turn the rules on their head and make it so complex, only one of you is going to figure it out, and he has the better chance to figure it out. And yet the guy doing that also set the record for most undefeated games in a row in top-level tournaments. Since been broken a few times, but, like, incredible record for him to set. He had this real rebirth in the 80s. He ended up winning a World Blitz Championship, which is faster games. Now, they didn't have an official version, but it basically was the one at the time. 27 years past his, like, playing peak. Because his peak is very much, he has this unbelievable run to the World Championship. Aside Fischer's run, I think it's probably the greatest, like, World Championship qualifying run. There used to be this format where there was a sequence of qualifying tournaments, and he wins the zonals by a huge margin, which was really tough because he was facing Soviet competition, and that's where all the best, or almost all the best players were. And then he wins the interzonal, which again includes all the Soviet opponents. And then he wins the candidates, which is all the best Soviets plus all the best from the rest of the world. And then he wins the world championship in quite convincing fashion. And then he gets really sick. Credit to his opponent, though, actually. His opponent, each player had sick days where they could delay the match. His opponent, Botvinnik, used his sick days to give Tal more time to recover. Thank you. Great job. Okay, Tal is one very fascinating stylistic player. At the far other end of the spectrum, we have Tigran Petrosian, which I just pronounced horribly, but I tried. That's what counts. Petrosian is like Tal wins his world championship very young. I believe Petrosian is older than Tal, but Petrosian in the 50s, where Tal is being lauded by everyone for he plays this wonderful, exciting style. Everyone's going, Petrosian is so good, but so boring. He just is happy to draw every game. And he can't win games. And to win the world championship, if you go to the world championship and you draw every game but one, but win that last game, you win the world championship. It's 1v1. That's enough. But to win the candidates is a tournament with lots of players, and you need to finish first. You need to get a lot of wins. He can't do it. And in the candidates that that Mikhail Tal wins, Petrosian really tries. I think that's the one. I might be getting the timeline a little wrong. But he really tries to play more complex chess. And he doesn't do great. He does worse than his usual. But everyone kind of celebrates, oh, hey, he can play to win. It didn't work out that well, but he did win a bunch. He lost a bunch too. But he can play to win. And then in the 1962 candidates, he does win it. Now, there was a whole bunch going on then. Fischer has all kind of collusions of Soviet cheating. And there was Soviet collusion, but it actually wasn't aimed at stopping Fischer at all. We won't get into that. But Petrosian does win that tournament. I don't think the collusion actually helped him. Also, there was a problem between his wife and someone else's wife. There was lots of stuff. Fischer ended up punching the other American in the tournament. Whole mess. Chess is a wilder place than you'd expect. Incidentally, I'm assuming Seto's going to go in 1, but maybe Delhi has a huge plan against that like he did last time and just wins on the spot like he did last time. I'm going to have to... I've been recording a lot today, and my kind of brain to follow this is a little bit gone, given that we already did 3 games of Tezuka and 3 games of this. So maybe we'll give this another look sometime, because this is a really fascinating match and fascinating games that maybe deserve more attention than I'm giving them. And thanks to the players for letting me know this was going to happen and I should record. But while we're on chess history, Tigran Petrosian ends up winning the candidates, and he ends up winning the world championship match against Botvinnik, the same guy Tal played a couple years later. And Botvinnik basically says, I did not understand how to play against someone that chose the positional path at every opportunity, right? That every position possible went for kind of the maximum positionally. And I don't know how to really describe this, but fundamentally, chess is a game where the most important thing is how active your pieces are, right? And this is true in lots of kind of war game type things, right? The more of your forces that are doing something active, the better you are, right? And the worse you are. And this is not the only factor of chess. There are many factors, but it is almost always the most important. If you want to guess who is better in a position, you should look for whose pieces are doing more. It should be the first thing you check for, unless someone's king's getting checkmated. But in a position that's not trivially obvious to judge, that's the primary indicator of what's happening. And moves should, to a quite large extent, be made to increase your piece activity. Petrosian wins the world championship caring about piece activity way less than any other top player ever has. He valued every other optimization higher. Yes, he could bring this piece to a better square, but he could also slightly improve his pawn structure. And if he doesn't slightly improve his pawn structure now, he might not get the chance later. So he's going to do the thing that, like, in the absolute long term, like, every one of his moves is the most long term move available. Obviously, not every one of his moves. Players have wider and more varied styles than we give them credit. We like to tell stories where we pretend they're one thing, but actually they are more things, more complex, right? And more able to do a variety of things. Mikhail Tal was this brilliant attacker, but you will also find positional masterpieces in his games, and you will also find just really boring games. That he was this wonderful attacker doesn't mean every game has to show that. And of course, that's true with Petrosian as well. But Petrosian is kind of, at every point, there's kind of, here's the thing that benefits me now, and here's things that benefit me in the future, right? And you have to make some kind of choices between them. And if you always choose to benefit yourself in the future, you are likely to get run over in the present. If you always choose to benefit yourself in the present, you might find hindrances down the road. And so most players, of course, will choose some things that benefit them now and some things that benefit them later. Maybe an analogy is like you have a card you could play in Triple Triad that's completely safe, but you could also save it for later because it's going to dominate in the directions it couldn't be taken with, right? And you have this choice between, do I keep this value for later or do I cash out on the value now? This is not a very good analogy for chess, but maybe it'll help someone. And if you like always make decisions in one direction, you're likely to get in trouble. And Petrosian, way more than anyone else, picks the long-term value. And somehow he makes it work. And he should just get run over constantly. Notably, because White has basically, gets to go first, has this kind of extra half turn, is always slightly ahead in speed, it is easier to get away with this as White than Black. So as White, he ends up looking like a more ambitious player, but it's because he doesn't have to take as many risks to do it. You can be more long-sighted as White because you have this extra half move to give yourself a cushion. As Black, however, he had to play very defensive repertoire, very much trying to lock the position down so that the cost of making these slow moves wasn't so high. The more open a position is, the bigger a cost to sort of wasting moves. But the more closed it is, the more you can get away with it. So as White, he could play open positions, but as Black, that was too risky, and he tried to keep them closed. But there's sort of these two fascinating players at the end of the spectrum, where Mikhail Tal is this wonderfully ambitious player finding creative, fantastic things to do now. And Petrosian is this player who almost always says, I am going to go for the thing that 10 turns from now, if I haven't lost, I'll be happier I did this, right? And there's such cool differences in players. And I think for Triple Triad, obviously we have a shorter and less illustrious history with fewer people, and we're not professional or anything, but we do have our wonderful players. And while the stories we tell about styles are never going to encapsulate everything, I think they can also tell fun stories. And I feel storytelling today, not analysis mode. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to turn off Do Not Disturb, see if anything exciting happened. And I'm going to check the Discord. With 4 moves left, really should have started calculating, but Delhi will do the calculation for us. The score is 5-5. My instinct is Delhi should play 6, 7, 7, 8, and 1 without having calculated much, right? If 8, 5, 7, 9 lands in 5, Marley combos it. If Tifa lands in 5, 6, 8, 6, 8 combos it. But the combo chains, Seta's so clever with the combo chains, right? So like if 8, 5, 7, 9 lands in 5, and Marley combos it, well, Tifa takes 6 with same wall, which, because we comboed through, flips 3, flips 2, and there's always extra cards. There's always extra cards. All right, what's happening elsewhere? In the Ultimecia chat. All right, nothing there. Turds is facing someone in the weekly open. Right? Deeply relevant. Let's get back to stuff and his advice about putting rule sets in descriptions. Delhi goes 8. So there's a plus wall in 9. So first instinct is Tifa in 1. Tifa in 1 should tie. Is there anything better than that? And the reason first instinct is Tifa in 1, I think explaining why you're drawn to a move first, is basically there are 3 squares left, and you want your last card to be good in both of the squares remaining. So what squares is Tifa good? Tifa is okay in 5. In fact, no, Tifa's really good in 5. Bad in 1. Decent in 9. So you could consider, because Tifa's best squares are 5 and 9, going 8, 5, 7, 9, and 1. 8, 5, 7, 9's best squares are also 5 and 9. So the other move to consider is Tifa in 1. You want to get rid of the bad square. You don't want to be stuck with it on your last turn. And so you want to kind of think which 2 squares are best for my remaining card. For like 1, because you'll only be able to have 1 left at the end. And then block the square that's not as good with the others. Almost always the best way to play these. And indeed, we can see Seto does play Tifa in 1. Yeah. Okay, I think this is their last game for a bit. It seems like Delhi, and presumably to some extent Seto as well, given he didn't win these games, were found these games very tiring and complex to figure out. So that's nice to see, because I certainly thought they looked at. So yeah, good games. Let's thank you to the players for playing them. No thank you to me for not analyzing them properly. And I guess technically even score at the end, but also in actual play, Delhi just put up 2.5 out of 3 on Seto in open random trade, which is incredible. And that should not be taken as a slight on Seto. We all lose some stuff, and as I said, like I think in a power rankings that was purely who do I think is the best right now, I think Seto's number 1. Seto has not been this active in the return. He's by far the most regularly playing. Basically every game of Ultimecia, he's just playing perfect. Again, he just won a weekly open. So, like, everything right now seems to be coming up Seto. Which makes this also very impressive result for Delhi, who really takes his time. Really taking your time. All right, how do you lose this? You go Marley in 5 because you get comboed through 8. Are there other ways to lose this? I guess Marley in 9. 6, 8, 7, 7, and 9 as well. Yeah, so you have to go 6, 8, 6, 7, 7, 8, and 5 here. So there's many ways to lose. many ways to lose. But yeah, he will play the proper move, and they get a tie. Um, Interesting trade games. Yeah, too complex for me, I think, and I hope you enjoyed them. Cheers.